Hey guys, TrainerDC here, coming at you with another video. We had a really interesting leak drop the other day regarding Generation 8 of Pokemon Sword and Shield. This is all coming from the Terror leak back to when it was before Sword and Shield was Sword and Shield. This is back to the days when Generation 8 was going to be Pokemon King and Queen. And this is all coming from Pokeos, who is sourcing the Terror leak, so shout out to them for putting this all out there and compiling this information together. The interesting thing about this is from the Terror leak, as I said before, and the Terror leak came out almost 2 years ago, and this has not been reported on. The really cool thing about the Terror leak is it's so massive that there are aspects of the leak that we don't know about yet that just haven't been reported on. Like, for example, I've seen stuff about Generation 5 that hasn't been widely reported on. I just saw it in a YouTube short or YouTube clip somewhere, and it's really interesting. Maybe we'll talk about that in another video, but for today, I want to get into Pokemon King and Queen, or as it was known as Project Rex back in May of 2016. On May 6th to be exact is when this initial overview was written by Shigeru Omori. So let's start out with the gimmick for this generation, as it was called Coevolution. It's somewhat similar to Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, but not really. So the Pokemon still get larger, just like Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, but instead of it happening because of some energy, it's happening due to the powers of other Pokemon being absorbed by the host Pokemon. So essentially, a group of Pokemon will lend their powers to a host Pokemon, causing them to grow in size and gain powers. The supporting Pokemon can actually pass their type on to the host, making their type change, or if the host, let's say, is already a fire type Pokemon and the fire type Pokemon passes its powers onto it, it can become what is known as a super type, which is like a double fire type, which is really interesting because that's something we've never seen before. The host and support Pokemon are still separate Pokemon, and they must be captured individually when defeated. So essentially what this is, in other words, is Pokemon fusion, but not Pokemon fusion. So the Pokemon are fusing together, but instead of them creating a new creature, a new monster in and of itself, it's essentially making one Pokemon become larger in size and gaining different typings and powers. So the example I'll give you here is, let's say you have a Psyduck, right? You have a Psyduck that you use an Arcanine to power up. All of a sudden, this Psyduck is a water fire type. It's large in size, and it uses the power of Arcanine to become a super powered Psyduck. Like, that's what this is essentially. It's pretty interesting. I think it's a little bit convoluted, to be honest, and I think the Dynamax Gigantamax gimmick is much more well thought out than this one, because this just seems a little confusing, to be honest. At least that's my take on it. Interestingly enough, though, Mega Evolution and Z moves were always planned to be removed in this game, so that's something that was planned from the get-go. What is more interesting, though, is apparently Giants are in this game, and Giants are when Pokemon absorb too much power and become a threat to the ecosystem, a threat to the region. These are basically going to serve as your boss fights, kind of like a subset of legendary Pokemon. Like we have Ultra Beast in Sun and Moon, like we have the Paradox Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, we would have Giants in Sword and Shield. There are 18 Giants, one for each type, with a 19th Giant being a fusion of the cover legendaries, which are the King and Queen Pokemon respectively, which we'll get into them a little bit later. Apparently there are 8 biological groups that would have been introduced in this game, being mammal, reptile, bird, amphibian, crustacean, fish, insect, and plant. Not really sure what these would all be used for. It's just some detail that was there, but apparently this concept was also turned into the 8 bones concept. Basically, there are 8 bone fragments that are taken from the primordial giants, so basically a mammal giant, a reptile giant, a plant giant, etc., etc., and essentially they light up landmarks and can lend power to other Pokemon, and they've been buried in towns that we visit during the 8 challenges, which I was presuming are 8 gyms, but we'll get into that in a little bit because apparently gyms aren't in this game. So to tie this all into the legendary Pokemon, there's going to be a trio, kind of like a quartet maybe, of legendary Pokemon. So they're all going to be based on playing cards, which I think is a really fun thing. Like, I like this a lot. We have the King, the Queen, the Ace, and the Joker. These specialty cards in a card game, right? In a deck of cards. You have the King, the Queen, who are the cover legendaries respectively. You have the Ace, who is the third legendary, creating the legendary trio. And the Joker Pokemon is another legendary that's serving as our villain for the game. So think of like the Eternatus Pokemon in the final version of Sword and Shield, but it's a Joker here. Basically, the lore behind the Joker Pokemon is a king finds metal or energy in a fissure and becomes a powerful tyrant. The King, Queen, and Ace legendaries team up to defeat it, dividing the Joker into 8 bones and scattering them throughout the region, which are the 8 bones that we're going to be discovering in this game. They describe this Pokemon as having an 8-stage evolution, which I'm presuming means it has 8 different stages. Like, you have stage 1 with 1 bone, stage 2 with 2 bones, etc., etc. Maybe there's a stage with no bones and it's like a Kyurem empty husk type of situation. It's described as being the strongest and largest Pokemon, making all others submit to it. So before we get into the typings for these Pokemon, I just want to comment very briefly on this. I think this concept is really, really cool. Like, I love the fact that we're basing this off of a deck of cards. We have the king, the queen, the ace, the joker. That's awesome. Like, I love that. And then the fact that the king, the queen, and the ace are this legendary trio that have to team up to defeat this joker Pokemon, this joker legendary who kind of forms a quartet in a way, but it's an evil fourth legendary to this trio, is really cool to me. And the fact that it gets defeated, it gets 8 bones taken away from it, buried throughout the region, is just really cool lore significance. So the typings for these Pokemon are as follows. The king Pokemon is a fighting and dragon type. It is the cover legendary for Pokemon King. The queen Pokemon is a psychic and dragon type, the cover legendary for Pokemon Queen. The ace Pokemon is a steel and dragon type. It is the third legendary according to this leak, so we have a new Dialga-like Pokemon here. Then the Joker is a dark and dragon type. And yeah, this all seems really interesting. I'm surprised to see the dragon typing attached to them because that doesn't really fit what I'm thinking of here. If they're all based on a deck of cards, I don't really see where the dragon type comes in here, which is why I'd love to see designs for these Pokemon, but I don't know if it ever got that far, or maybe it did and they just weren't in this leak. But this is all rather interesting, and I would just love for them to revisit the idea of a deck of cards legendary quartet, because that's just so cool. Next up, we have weapon Pokemon, which apparently there are 8 weapon Pokemon in this game: a sword, an axe, a rune, a hammer, shield, head, armor, knuckle. The only one that has a typing attached to it is the head being a water dragon type. We don't really know what these would have done or how they would have tied into the game. They're kind of just there and not talked about much at all outside of existing, so that's kind of weird. Next up, we have details about the region. So this was before the Galar region. It was called the Teyla region, and it's based on Britain, and it's divided into 3 different zones, which is really interesting. So something I didn't talk about going over the typings of the legendaries, you can see there's an age group attached to them: the New Age, the Middle Age, and the Ancient Age. Essentially what this is there are 3 zones throughout the map that are New Age, Middle Age, Ancient Age. Each of them are different types of civilizations within this region. So the New Age is a modern civilization. It contains 4 cities, cars, television, science, etc. It's basically our modern society within this region, the Teyla region. It's a technologically developed society, very much so akin to our own society. Then there's the Middle Age, which is a tribal society. It contains 3 settlements. They have limited info inside their walls until the player crosses the walls and tells them about it. The villains of this game are trying to use the tribe to excavate underground to presumably get to the 8 bones to form this Joker legendary Pokemon. And then the Ancient Age is another portion of this map that has no human society within it. It contains a giant tree that leads to the Isle of Man, where the climax of the game happens, the battle between these 3 card legendary Pokemon with the Joker Pokemon, the King, the Queen, the Ace versus the Joker. So that's all really interesting to me, that this game, this region, was going to be distinctively separated into 3 different parts: a modern civilization, a tribal civilization, and then an ancient civilization before humans. I find that to be rather interesting, and honestly, again, a rather cool idea that I'm loving from this leak. Like, there is so much from this leak, and I'll give my overview thoughts at the end, but there is so much from this leak that I really like and would have liked to have seen in the actual Sword and Shield. Like, some of this I like more than Sword and Shield, to be honest. So the game has 8 challenges, your 8 gym battles, basically, combining exploration with the boss fight. The boss is a knight using a giant Pokemon, and defeating each of these knights is going to grant you one of the 8 bones, which again is going to be needed to form this Joker legendary. So I'm presuming what's going to happen throughout this story is basically we accidentally awaken the Joker legendary by collecting these bones. Maybe we don't fully understand what it does, and then we realize, oh no, we just unleashed this calamity upon the Teyla region. And the last note here for the challenges is, quote unquote, the knights are 8 elite giant handlers. So again, these are your gyms. So interestingly enough about this is there would have been no actual gyms in this game. It would be another Sun and Moon type situation where we had the island trial. This time we would have the 8 challenges, the knights and giant Pokemon for us to defeat and fight in battle. Next up, we have an image here of the map, and the map itself is very different looking than what we got in Sword and Shield. It has 7 dueling grounds, 4 towns, 7 ruins, 4 castles. The Isle of Man has 6 ruins sealing it and 4 castles watching over it. So it sounds like this is going to be a much less developed civilization than we saw in the actual Galar region. Instead of there being all these grand cities, we're gonna have these smaller towns and castles, and it seems like a more broken down region, which I think is really interesting conceptually. The last couple of details I have for you here is the evil team is called Team Metal. Apparently they want to use the giant to reshape the region by force, so they are after the 8 bones that we are collecting throughout this game. And the last detail, which is kind of crazy that we have this information, is we have the initial Pokédex for this game, which would have contained 100 brand new Pokemon. I say 100 brand new Pokemon. There are 18 regional variants in this game, so really 82 brand new Pokemon. So going through this real quick, and also the giants too, we got to take those giants out, so 18 giants as well that are going to come out of this game, and also to the 19th giant being Giant Kaiser, which is the combination or fusion of the King and Queen Pokemon, so that's another thing. But anyways, we have the starter Pokemon for this game, which are the Dog Fire starter, the Water starter, and then the Rabbit Grass starter. Immediately right off the bat, Dog Fire starter is what we're getting in Winds and Waves with Palm Bomb, so maybe Palm Bomb was initially conceptualized here during Generation 8 and eventually got revisited for Gen 10. That's fascinating. The Water starter has no animal attached to it, so that one wasn't finalized yet. And then the Grass starter is going to be a rabbit, which is fascinating because a rabbit is what we ended up getting in the Fire starter and Score Bunnies. So it seems like they switched the Fire starter around with the grass and they created Sobble and Grookey as the other 2 starter Pokemon. We have the legendaries here, which I'm not going to go over again. The giants, which we know about already. We have the 18 regional forms, which interestingly enough all come from the Middle Age. The one note I'll give you on the regional variants is apparently Zubat and Tentacool were mentioned as potential Pokemon to get regionals in this game. Obviously Tentacool and Tentacruel got Toedscool and Toedscruel respectively in Scarlet and Violet, and the Zubat line hasn't gotten anything outside of Crobat back in Gen 2, so that would have been really cool to see. There's all the weapon Pokemon, which we went over already. Then we have our new Pokemon for this game. The Pikachu slot is a Pikachu equivalent mascot. We get that in every Pokemon game. We have a Grasshopper Bug 3-stage line, which is very similar to Nimble and Lokix, which we got in Generation 9, so maybe this line got scrapped from Gen 8, moved to Gen 9, and became a 2-stage line. That's interesting. Same thing with the Squirrel. We have Squirrel 1 and Squirrel 2. I'm very curious if that was originally Greedent, but more so a Grafaiai-like Greedent, and maybe they split them into 2 separate ideas, made the Greedent line in Sword and Shield, and then used the Grafaiai poison type concept as a little squirrel-like poison type for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. There's the Golden Eggbird Pokemon, which evolves into the Ugly Duckling Pokemon, which evolves into another bird Pokemon. That didn't happen. We have 2 foxes, which I don't know if this was Thievul maybe, because it says a dark type, but then there's also a fighting type, so maybe it's like a version exclusive fox for each game. There's Tower Raven 1 and 2, Psychic Flying. There's 2 pollution Pokemon being poison type, 2 electric Pokemon, just electric type, steel fire typing. There are many forms fairy Pokemon, which apparently is a Ditto-like Pokemon capable of having many forms that was going to be a fairy type, so we're going to have a new Ditto-like Pokemon in this game, which is really interesting. There's 2 generic fairies. We have a Poltergeist Pokemon with 2 stages, very clearly got turned into Sinistea and Poltegeist. 2 psychic Pokemon, an Uncracked Amethyst, a Cracked Amethyst, an Underground City Pokemon 2-stage line, which is interesting. A Mudman Pokemon 2-stage line, Campfire 2-stage, Piranha Crocodile 2-stage. We have an Ice Ship, which evolves into an Ice Battleship, which evolves into an Ice Vessel, which is fascinating. And then we have Team Metal Knight 1, Knight 2, and Knight 3, which are going to be Dark Steel types, which I will say real quick seems awfully similar to King Gambit's line, so maybe it's for the better that we didn't get that. But overall, this is crazy to me. Like, I absolutely love this concept for Pokemon King and Queen. I think it sounds so cool. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Coevolution. I think Dynamaxing and Gigantamax is a better thought out concept than that. I love the idea though of the lore of this region, like the fact that there were these giant Pokemon that essentially primordial giants were dead, I guess they died over time, and the bone fragments were scattered throughout the region, and this evil card Pokemon from this card quartet, the Joker Pokemon, decides to take the 8 bones and use it for its own power to take over the region. Then you have the King, the Queen, the Ace, the other members of the quartet. Stopping this Pokemon is so cool. They defeat it, all the bones are scattered throughout, and this empty husk is left, and then we have to collect these bones, and it has 8 different stages for each of the bones, eventually becoming this uber powerful Joker Pokemon. That is so cool. Like, there's clearly stuff here that wasn't as well thought out, like the whole weapon Pokemon thing. Like, why are they here? Doesn't really make much sense to me. The Teyla region though, being divided into 3 sections, the New Age, the Middle Age, the Ancient Age, I love that conceptually as well. And the fact that we have 8 challenges where we fight these different boss knights using giant Pokemon, like, this is all so cool. And quite frankly, I kind of like it a little bit more than Sword and Shield. Like, don't get me wrong, like, Sword and Shield I would argue that they are the worst Pokemon games we've ever gotten for a myriad of reasons. I believe I talked about that in another video long ago, but if you want to hear me go in depth on that, maybe I'll talk about it again. But I like Zacian. I like Zamazenta, I like Eternatus, I like the region itself, the Galar region, but this all just sounds so much cooler. Like, I cannot tell you how much I love the idea of a legendary quartet based on a deck of cards, a king, a queen, an ace, and a joker. Like, that is so cool. And I hope that eventually they revisit this topic, but I highly doubt they will, because this is very clearly based on the UK, very clearly based on Great Britain. So I don't think they're ever going to revisit this for another game, which is a shame, because I love the idea of having a quartet legendary where they're cards. Like, maybe they can do that as like a legendary quartet just in like Winds and Waves or something, or just another Pokemon game where it's like you have your, you know, your rune quartet in Scarlet and Violet. Well, now we have the card quartet in Winds and Waves or something like that. Like, that'd be sick. I just love that conceptually. But let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you think about Pokemon King and Pokemon Queen? Do you like what they put forth here conceptually? The idea of coevolution, this legendary quartet based on cards, a deck of cards, the whole idea of these giant Pokemon with the Joker using the 8 bones for its own evil, menacing plans, the idea of Team Metal using Joker to reshape the region, the idea of the region being broken up into 3 separate sections. Like, let me know what you think about all of this, because I think this would have been a very unique and fun Pokemon experience, and I kind of wish it's what we got for Gen 8. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from Trainer DC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.